Hey, it's Brian from the world famous quantlabs.net Gong Show. Now, why do I say the Gong Show? Because I'm always thinking of a unknown comic and trying to do something that just can't be done properly. And he did it in the name of comedy. I call it something where I badly haphazardly worked on a product or a project. Now here's the backstory. I was talking to my quant friend London, and what I wanted to do was to be able to take historical tick-by-tick data, okay, and convert it into 1 minute chart, or sorry, 1 minute bar charts. And basically all I could really find that was doable and that was fairly easy to understand was this little C program on this Awanda site right here. So I spent literally a week trying to convert this C program into a visual C++ program that just like went nowhere really fast. And I had difficulty with string manipulation, file manipulation. It's a nightmare trying to work with Visual C++. So, and again, I spent a week on it. So, Gong Show there. This didn't really pan out too well for me. So I decided to take the same C file, take the logic, convert it into a C# project within my Visual Studio 2012. Project is called TIC2bar CS, C#. Again, 2012 Visual Studio. So what I wanted to do is to allow this project, all these little files and classes, to be downloadable. Now, this is by no means anywhere close to being finished, but what I've done is tried to replicate it as close as possible to this C file or C program. Okay, and I've included everything: the solution files, the files that it's reading and writing, and all that stuff. Now, why do I say it's haphazard? Well, because it's probably not working as best as I want, and really, I'd rather just hand it off to somebody to see what improvements they can make. Okay. Now, what I'm kind of looking for is I've got over nearly 6,000 people in my community. Now, I wouldn't say a lot of them know C#, but it's probably 100, let's say, and maybe out of that 10 people that might want to take this on, and some of them may be looking for a job. So, you know, I thought to myself, why would I bang my head against the wall trying to get this to a working state? Why don't I get somebody from the community and see what happens? So this is the first time I'm actually doing this. And essentially I'll guide you through the logic and let me know where the improvements can be made, and just send me back a working, simple C# program that does the job. So let me just take you through this. I don't know what the resolution will be on YouTube when this is posted, so my apologies, but it said follow the links in the YouTube video to the site where you can download this project, and you should be able to interpret it. It's not that difficult. If you know C and C#, you should be just fine. So I'm just now taking you to the C program and just walking you through the process. It's very easy. You got a min and a max definition in C. You set up your data, like your tick, your float, all that stuff. You set up a structure for your bar data. In this case, it's OHLC, open, high, low, close, all the bid ask and the date. Let me just walk you through the tick. So in the tick data, you have, in this case in the C, you're actually retaining a global file pointer, as well as you have your date counter for, I don't ever see that really actually being used. Your GMT representation of the tick date, and your bid and ask, both floats. Alright, so now the cool thing about this is that there's 3 representations of this tick structure. I just showed you this one right here. And there's a minute, hour, day. I really don't care about hour or day. I don't need it. So first thing that happens is I'm going to show you first the different functions first, and then I'll walk you through the main function. Okay, so the first function we have is to open the OHLC file. Okay, so remember we set a name to it, and then there's some manipulation to get the name of the file. Here we do some manipulation on setting up the bid and ask, the high-low of the minute data, or the bar history data. Okay, and then there's some manipulation on the dates. Now, for those that don't know C, you may run into some difficulty with the dates, but hey, I'm not here to teach you C, but it's pretty straightforward when you do the help or look up for these functions for the GMT and all that. Okay, so that's pretty well the open on the historical or bar data on the OHLC. And don't forget, you got to free up your memory as well on when you create part of the name process is calling, using this calloc to allocate. So the next routine is we have a very simple read tick. Does an fscanf on this data, okay, and then it initializes all the date data for the TM structure, and it does some further manipulation on the GMT with the count. Okay, next we do an update on the OHLC, again the historical minute data or whatever historical data or bar data. So if E equals the GMT is equal to the OHLC start GMT. This is the tick GMT, and the bar date and the tick date just sets whatever the tick date, the tick bid and tick asks are, and it initializes all the OHLC bid and ask info. Now, if it's not equal, it'll do some, again, manipulation, min, max, all that stuff. Okay? Woo! Okay, so now we go into our write. Again, we have what's our period, difference between the end and the start of the OHLC. Is it equal to the closed bid or not equal to 0, not equal to 0 on the open bid, and then I'll write it out using this fprintf to the OHLC file. Now it's a minute file, remember, and resets everything, does some more data calculations on the period and all that. So that ends that. So now we're into our main function. Okay, so essentially what you're supposed to do in the arg is you send in the file name and the pair, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it's expecting. Where's the usage? Yeah, here you go. Yeah, you send the CSV in of their CSV input file and your pair. Now I've included those CSVs as part of the project. I'll show that in a minute. And I'll just generate 3 files in this particular C file. It'll create a historical data or bar data for minute, hour, and day. Opens the tick file, and that's a CSV. Does some checks. Does the first read on the tick. Can't read it. Cannot read the file. No problem. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the OHLC files for minute, hour, and day. Do some more data conversion. Now this can be a little tricky to figure out, but this 86,399 is the number of seconds in a day. Now what's going to happen is now we're hitting a while loop, infinite loop, or for now it would appear that way. So we do what we try to figure out what the minimum is with the standard out, which is standard out is usually, in a nutshell, the tick data or the tick date. That's pretty well what it refers back to when you trace that back. So we're going to try to figure out the minimum of the standard out GMT, the minimum on the tick GMT, and the minimum of all those other current minimum minute, hour, and day dates. Again, if you're asking for the GMT, what do these mean? They're basically long versions of the time structure. That's how it's done in C. Just to give you a high level. Now it's going to do some more checks. Is the GMT equal to the tick GMT? If it is, update the OHLC and then read in the next tick. And then I want to check if we're at the end. And if it is, write it out. And do some logging. And then once we get, oh, there's a little break here. I'll break that infinite loop that we just entered in. Now, if basically that means if there's no more ticks, break the loop. So we still have to write out the final data of the OHLC data, be it minute, hour, or day. We'll just do some more logging, close up the files, and you're done. Yay. Now let's take a look at my butchered C#. Okay? Now remember, I'm not an expert at this. I just did a quick and dirty way of doing this, and hopefully somebody can come back with a really easy way of doing stuff. But what I've basically got here is as best of my ability to replicate that C file I just showed you. Okay? So basically, let me just give you a very high level of it. And again, it's exactly that, a very high level. In essence, what I had to do is to parse the tick as it comes in, reads a tick, but it's maintaining the tick as a list. Okay? That's just for temporary, it's no big deal. You have to open up the input file, which is tick test under release. Again, you'll find these files under the release directory. So they're there, they should be there. And then we create the list, instantiate it, create a reader stream, and it just loads in the proper ticks. And that works, I know that. And then I'm going back to our open OHLC, our update OHLC, write OHLC equivalents. Just show you those. Now these are called methods, not functions. So we send over the tick, the current tick, and the period that we're working with. Okay, now it might be slightly different, but that's the whole point, to get it to a point where it's kind of working and figuring out this stuff. But essentially, it's loading in the same data as you saw in the C file. Oh, and before I forget, if you still need to know that C file, original URL, it's here, right in the top line of the program. .cs. Okay? So again, where were we here? Okay, I believe we are under open OHLC. So we send over the tick, the period, loading the data, trying to be similar to the C. In this case, I'm returning the OHLC class. So let me show you that. That's this guy right here. So it's simple. You got your getters and setters and all that of all the necessary properties for the OHLC class. While we're at it, I want to just show you the tick. Same thing with the tick. This is the data, the getters and setters. Yay. Okay, so we've got we've done the open. I've explained that to you, and again, we return the OHLC class or the object for the OHLC. And now we do the update, send over the OHLC and the tick classes. Same thing as you saw before, tick GMT equals the start GMT, set the bid ask. If not, do this bid ask with the min max, all that stuff, and then again return the OHLC object. Now this is where we write the OHLC. Just due to wonky ways, I try to keep it as similar as possible, so I'm passing the actual file handle of the stream writer, which is defined here, and then it's called from within that infinite loop. Of course, I had to throw in some exception checking. So let's just go through this, the OHLC object, the stream writer file handle, calculate the period. Again, the difference between the end and the start, and convert it into total seconds. Check to see if there is a bid and a ask. Ooh, I'm smart. I just found, oh no, close and bid. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to convert everything into a string and write it out. Flush, do a count, blah 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 blah. All the resettle the data, add some seconds of whatever the period we send over. And again, I'm only caring about minute data, so I send over 60 seconds. Okay, so the main, we do a instantiation of the ticks, read the ticks, total, we get our ticks list here. We define our date, and this is a lot easier than in the C. We add seconds, number of seconds in a day. We open that stream writer file, which is basically this guy, which is creating the output file, which I call 1 minute txt. Just for kicks. Define and instantiate the OHLC. We're going to call it minute OHLC. Create a counter of I. Create this long tick, GMT number of ticks. So this is the date time, but the number of ticks for that particular date time. I'll show you what I mean in a sec. So we do our open OHLC, as I said, we send over 60 seconds. We do, what we're trying to do is we're trying to calculate the date time and how many ticks there are of that particular current date time, and we just maintain it in these longs of ticks files. So we've got a standard out GMT ticks, tick GMT ticks, which is the number of ticks for the current tick that we're reading in. I know it's confusing, but we're reading in a tick, but for the date of that tick, we need to know how many ticks there are for that tick which is read in, which is really the market data tick. Two different types of ticks there. Just want to make sure people get that. And we also maintain our OHLC minute end number of ticks. And again, that's the minute. Okay? So now we calculate our current GMT ticks by calculating the minimum. Again, with using just the minimum, the tick number of, for the date, number of ticks, as well as, that's it. And then from there we do some calculating here, as much as possible, update when the GMT ticks equals the standard out GMT ticks. This could be wrong. It's gonna, if it's I equal to 1, number of ticks equals break out of the loop. That's supposed to be the equivalent of this. Okay, so if it's equal to 0, there's no more, break out of the loop, and that's what I'm doing here. Hoping that's right. And then if the GMT ticks is equal to the number of minute bar or OHLC and the ticks, we write it out, and check the particular number of ticks in that market data tick, and against the current. We just do the logging. Now I calculate, add on the number of ticks per day onto the current standard out GMT ticks. Got that little counter of I, which checks here. What else do we have? And then finally, if our current ticks is greater than the minute bar start date number of ticks, write it out. And do more logging and close. Now in here I should have an exception checking, but whatever. But you get the idea. That's pretty well it. As I said, I'm sure this has been butchered pretty bad, but however you want to help out, just let me know. Reach out to me via email or just post on the forum under the Academy, and we'll definitely credit you, and hey man, it could sort of lead into bigger and brighter things. You never know. Which means, of course, memberships and helping me out. And if we get funded for something, hey, you'd be number one. To me, at least, in C#. Talk to you later. Thanks, and have a good day.